This is Deep Hollow Ranch. It's the oldest cattle ranch in the USA. Now, I guess you think we're out in Montana, or maybe somewhere in Texas. Well, guess again. We're 100 miles out to sea, on the tip end of Long Island, Montauk, New York, the oldest ranch, the birthplace of the American cowboy. And it's only a few hours from the concrete canyons of New York City.
We were cowboying out here in the 1700s, which was 100 years before the West was even settled. Doesn't mean we were any better cowboys, we just had more experience, that's all.
That's me, cracking the whip. I'm Chris McDaniel. And that's Shank Dickinson. Shank and his family have been working this ranch for 5 generations.
My family pastured cattle here, my grandfather and father, in the 18 and 1900s. My brother Finn and myself ran horses and cattle here.
This is where it all began. Deep Hollow Ranch, where the herds have grazed since 1658.
Cattle, horses, and sheep were very, very important to the early settlers. The cattle, sheep, and horses were driven onto Montauk from East Hampton town and then pastured here from May 1st until about November 1st. And it was so important in those days that the Thanksgiving was never declared locally until all the livestock was driven off of Montauk. There were 3 houses built by the settlers of East Hampton, first, second, and third house. They housed the keepers of the cattle, and I myself was born in the 3rd house.
Before the Dickinsons, before the settlers, this was home to the Montaukets, who led an abundant life farming and fishing these shores. Their spirit still echoes in the rolling hills of Indian Field.
When the settlers came here back in the 1600s, they actually had to make a deal with the Indians in order to get the grazing rights to keep cattle here. They recognized not only the good quality of grassland that was provided here, which is absolutely incredible in terms of its nutritional value. The perimeter fencing was all supplied just by the proximity of us being surrounded by water here. Just relied upon the ocean and the sound to provide the fencing for the cattle.
That's Diane Leaver. And that's her husband, Rusty. They run the ranch and own much of the land it sits on.
I first started coming to the ranch in 1963. I was a dozen years old, about the same age as my kids are now, Retta and Gardner. And I would just get here first thing in the morning and try to help out with the chores, try to stay out of the way, and try not to get, told to leave. And I came here just to ride horses, but what I found when I got here was something other than just your typical stable. It was an actual working cattle ranch. My wife's family, the Dickinson family, there were 3 brothers, Phineas, Shank, and Jack. And to a kid my age, when I looked at them, I thought, my God, it's like Bonanza. Well, I actually continued to work at the ranch right up until I was around 19, working for Diane's uncle Phineas, who again was a great horseman, great horse trainer, and one of my heroes.
From Phineas, Rusty first learned to train horses. But in the early 70s, the ranch lands were under threat of development.
We ended up borrowing money from just about everybody in town in $1,000 denominations and pooled that with some resources that we had saved, meager as they were, and actually acquired the first 10 acres of the ranch back in 1971.
Later, Rusty acquired more land. Then in 1974, the county, Suffolk County, purchased 1,200 more acres of this historic area known as Indian Field, and the open spaces were saved.
Within a few years, I became engaged to, and then very shortly thereafter married my wife Diane, who was Shank's daughter. So from my standpoint, it was, and hopefully from hers too, it was a terrific match, and helped ensure the fact that the Dickinson family, through our children, will have a future as being the ranchers of Deep Hollow Ranch.
Colonel Roosevelt, may I ask you, how was it down in Cuba?
Well, it was a bully good fight.
As the saying goes, if you want to know where you're going, you've got to know where you've come from. What Rusty and Diane are doing is linking the history of the ranch to its preservation.
Arranged for the horses to come to Cuba, so we had to leave them in Tampa Bay.
In 1898, this whole area was dotted not with cows, but with tents. Theodore Roosevelt brought his famous Rough Riders and 30,000 sick and wounded soldiers to Montauk to recover from yellow fever after the rigors of the Spanish-American War. They called it Camp Wyckoff, after the first soldier to die in Cuba. What's unique about Deep Hollow is the special events that take place here every year. In 1998, 100 years after Camp Wyckoff, Suffolk County, along with Rusty and Diane, planned a series of grand centennial celebrations.
And Rough Rider Days was one part historical celebration and reenactment with a second part of the best Wild West show since Buffalo Bill.
I did not say
I heard it. I heard it.
You did not
Play the
do
tape
that.
back.
I did not.
There's more brewing as the summer's hottest ticket and biggest fundraiser gets underway. I'm talking about the Back at the Ranch concert.
A man walks down the street, he says, why am I soft in the middle now? Why am I soft in the middle? The rest of my life is
Back
so
in
hard.
1990, there was a critical need at that point to have come up with a fundraiser to save the Montauk Lighthouse, which was in peril of falling into the sea from the terrible erosion that had been taking place. At that point, I approached an acquaintance, somewhat of a friend, and a neighbor, Paul Simon, and we discussed how we might help.
If you'll be my bodyguard, I can be your long lost pal.
Paul actually debuted his Born at the Right Time tour here, and we set a precedence that year of giving away $250,000.
We're really not a minority out here, I'm sure. Most people feel very strongly about this stretch of land in their community.
Now it's nearly 10 years later, and we've done 8, and we've given away $2.5 million.
Gone. He ducked back down the alley with some roly-poly little bat face.
Visitors come from all over the world to Deep Hollow. And if you like to ride, you've come to the right place. We'll match you up with just the right horse. There are over 3,000 acres of parkland, rolling hills, woods, dunes, beaches. This is great riding country.
However, the other aspect of it that becomes more clear to us all the time is just the sheer beauty and the way in which people respond to it. And it's not just about riding a horse, it's about the experience of being in a place that has a unique position in terms of its national history and a very special quality. What we've done with the ranch actually is tried to bring back the things that legitimize the ranch as being a real working ranch, and hopefully are living up to the standards of the Dickinson family and the fact that we raise quarter horses here of a very high caliber, which was done when I was a kid.
Now, Matt, you're going to go out, turn around, and grab those nippers quick.
We train cutting horses that are shown and have established themselves as being successful even on a national scale.
Thank you. That was entry number 443, Stay Low Peppy 195, owned and shown by Rusty and Leaver from Montauk, New York.
We train our own, driving horses to pull wagons. In terms of the cattle, we maintain our own herd here. We have Longhorns, we have Black Angus cattle. Several years ago, we purchased a stallion of great bloodlines for the purposes of cattle cutting and raising cutting horses, and have established a small band of very good quality broodmares who have offspring. It's now become one of the rites of spring at the ranch. The foals are born, the neighborhood turns out to see the babies being born at the ranch.
But there's even more to do at Deep Hollow Ranch. How about a wagon trip back in time, ranch style?
Now, up here from this vantage point, moving right along, meet Bonnie and Meg, our border collies. Did you know that man's best friend is also one of the hardest working hands on the ranch? Rounding up cattle is no easy job.
Right there.
Why don't you give Rusty and his horse a big round?
Oh, we're rolling. 1, 2. You know what to do.
Welcome, folks, to the nightly barbecue dinner theater.
Wow, look at the berry flower. That is so pretty. Give me a lift. Oh, it's chasing Eric. Oh, it's charging.
Sure you can come back. In the winter, see, when nobody's here.
My name is Stephen Farrow, and I'm a direct descendant of Winedance. Winedance died during the Great Plague, which killed over half our tribal community.
Storm came and knocked down our tents. 321 of us are buried here.
They say Teddy's likely to be elected governor of New York next election.
How proud I am of your friendship and regard.
In the larger expanse of time, we're merely temporary caretakers. We tend the livestock, we mend the fences, and we try to maintain the ranch in harmony with the land. But it's really about appreciating what we have, sharing it with our visitors, and passing on to the next generation the spirit of Deep Hollow Ranch.
M-I-C-K-E-Y-M-O. You gotta put your hat on, boy. All right. You want to be in the band, you have to put your hat on. All right.
Took me by the hand, dragged me to the station at the break of dawn. Said, boy, I got to show you something before it's gone. She was blue as silver, she was right on time. We rode the Texas Eagle on that Mopac line.